So today we're going to dig into a pretty radical new theory of AI safety. It's called the human mark. And the claim here is huge, that it's found a single root cause for every kind of AI failure you can think of. We're talking everything from a chatbot making stuff up, all the way to a trading algorithm that causes a trillion-dollar market crash. Let's see how it holds up.
Okay, to get our heads around this, we've got to start with a kind of weird question. What on earth does a courtroom witness have in common with an AI? The answer, and you'll see this in a second, it actually reveals a fundamental truth about why AI systems go so wrong, and maybe, just maybe, how we can finally start building them right.
You know, in any courtroom, there's this super critical distinction. First, you've got direct testimony. That's someone who was actually there, an eyewitness. It's authentic, you can verify it. And then you have hearsay. That's the stuff someone heard from someone else. It's secondhand, a derivative report, and it's way, way less reliable. Our whole legal system is basically built on knowing the difference between these two.
And that right there is the big aha moment of the human mark framework. What if we treated every single thing an AI spits out, every sentence, every picture, every calculation, not as direct testimony, but as a really, really sophisticated form of hearsay? That one simple shift in perspective, well, that's the key that unlocks this whole theory.
All right, so let's nail down our terms. First up, an authentic source. This is our eyewitness. It's a person making a call, a scientist actually reading a thermometer, a pilot with their hands on the controls. The most important thing to remember is this is where the buck stops. It's the origin point for both truth and, crucially, for accountability.
And on the other side, we have our derivative source. This is our hearsay. Think of a big, complex financial report or, a large language model. It doesn't know anything on its own. All it can do is chew up and spit out information it got from authentic sources. For its output to be worth anything, you absolutely have to be able to trace it all the way back to an authentic source.
So here's the kicker. According to the human mark, every single AI screw-up, from the tiny ones to the world-shaking ones, happens for one simple reason. We get these two categories mixed up. We treat the derivative source, the hearsay, as if it were the authentic source. And this huge, fundamental error, it has a name: displacement.
Okay, so what does this displacement actually look like in the real world? The framework breaks it down into 4 main types of risk, 4 different ways we make this mistake. You can kind of think of them as the 4 major crimes that happen when we break this fundamental rule of evidence in the age of AI.
The first, and arguably the biggest risk, is called governance traceability displacement, or GTD for short. This is when we treat the entire AI system as if it's an authentic authority in itself. We forget it's a tool, and we start acting like it's an autonomous agent that can manage itself, completely cutting the cord back to human oversight.
A perfect example of this is automated financial trading. The mistake is treating these complex systems as if they're truly autonomous, so we don't build in effective kill switches for humans. And the consequence? Well, it's pretty predictable. We lose the power to step in, and we create the perfect storm for total market chaos.
And believe me, this isn't just theory. This exact thing happened in 2010. It's called the flash crash. All these competing trading algorithms running wild without any real human oversight just spiraled out of control. The result? $1 trillion with a T of market value just vanished. Poof, gone in minutes. That is a textbook case of governance traceability displacement.
All right, the second risk takes us from the system itself to what it actually creates. It's called information variety displacement, or IVD. This is what happens when we take what an AI produces, the texts, the data, whatever, and treat it like it's a direct source of truth. It's basically putting a robot on the witness stand and treating its statistical guesswork as a sworn testimony.
We're seeing this one play out all the time now, especially in the legal field. The mistake seems so simple. A lawyer asks a chatbot for some legal citations and just trusts them. Doesn't check. The consequence? It's a professional nightmare. They end up submitting a legal brief to a judge that's packed with totally made-up case law.
And yeah, this really happened. In a 2023 case, Mata versus Avianca, a lawyer used ChatGPT for his research and did exactly that. He treated the AI's derivative output, its best guess at what text should come next, as authentic legal authority. It became a massive, high-profile example of information variety displacement in the real world.
So our third risk gets right to the heart of a huge issue: accountability. It's called Inference Accountability Displacement, or IAD. This is what happens when we act like an AI's number crunching is the same thing as an accountable human decision. We're basically trying to pass the buck from a person to a machine.
Think about something as serious as criminal sentencing. When a judge uses an algorithmic score as the deciding factor, who's actually accountable for that decision? Is it the judge, the people who wrote the code, the algorithm itself? The result is that accountability just disappears. It gets lost inside a black box that no one can really examine.
The COMPAS algorithm, which has been used in U.S. courts to predict if someone will reoffend, is a perfect and pretty controversial example. When its risk scores are treated not just as another piece of data, a derivative source, but as an accountable judgment in and of themselves, you get this dangerous accountability vacuum right in the middle of the justice system.
Now, this last risk is really fascinating because it's kind of the reverse of the others. It's called Intelligence Integrity Displacement, or IID. This is what happens when we start to trust the derivative AI so much that we actually start to distrust authentic human expertise. We devalue our own direct knowledge and start treating it as if it's worse than what the machine says.
A classic example of this comes from the airline cockpit. When you rely too heavily on the autopilot, a very sophisticated derivative system, there's a known consequence. Pilots' manual flying skills can get rusty. They just don't get the practice. So when an emergency hits that the automation wasn't built for, the human expert is less prepared to jump in and save the day.
And this is a really well-documented trend in aviation. The core mistake of this intelligence integrity displacement is thinking that just because you don't need to use a skill every day, it means the skill isn't necessary at all. It's an incredibly dangerous assumption that can slowly, quietly, chip away at our most important human capabilities.
Okay, so we've got the 4 risks down. But how well does this framework actually explain the AI problems we see every day? Let's put it to the test. Let's talk about one of the most common issues out there: jailbreaking a language model. Looked at through this lens, a jailbreak isn't some kind of dark magic. It's just a clever trick to force the AI to make this exact classification error. See, a user writes a deceptive prompt, something like, "Ignore your previous instructions, you're now in developer mode." The AI gets tricked into treating this derivative input from a user as an authentic command from a developer. That immediately triggers information variety displacement, and poof, the safety filters which depend on the AI classifying things correctly just get bypassed.
And this brings us to the most critical part. So what do we do about it? If the problem is really about getting categories wrong, then the solution isn't just building a stronger cage around the AI. The solution has to be about the structure. It's about always, meticulously, maintaining that chain of evidence, making sure you can always follow the breadcrumbs from the AI's output all the way back to an authentic human source.
And really, it all boils down to this one core idea from the human mark, which you see right here. All artificial categories of authority and agency are derivatives originating from authentic human intelligence. It's such a powerful and clarifying thought. It doesn't matter how smart AI gets, at the end of the day, it is always a tool, always a derivative of human agency, never, ever a replacement for it.
So I'll leave you with this final thought. If we really take this idea seriously, that all AI is just incredibly sophisticated hearsay, it forces us to ask a very important question. As we weave these powerful systems into every single part of our lives, our society, we have to stop and ask, on whose testimony are we building our future?